His name is Charles Davis. You can follow him on Twitter at CFD22. NFL Network, by the way, live coverage of the first round of the 2015 NFL Draft tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern. They've also got coverage Friday and Saturday as well. You can watch the whole draft on NFL Network if you're so inclined, and this guy will be prominent among their coverage. Charles, it's Ross Tucker. Really happy to have you on board. And let's start with the question I think everybody wants to know, everybody's opinion. Who you got, Winston or Mariota?
I love Mariota, Ross. I would want him to be my son. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think that he will adapt and thrive as an NFL quarterback. I think he has everything that you're going to want to learn the things he needs to learn. I'm loving how in this last week of time, there's been a lot of chatter all of a sudden that, well, what he did in college really does translate to the NFL. Just boom. I mean, that message has come out of almost nowhere. And I've never argued that he's done some things like a pro. But Winston has done that consistently. Everything's been huddle, call plays, under center more, pulling the trigger into those tight windows on those types of throws. Did he throw more interceptions? Without a doubt. But I think the way Oregon designs offense, which is phenomenal, right? What they do there, I'd love to play in that offense because you're going to get people open, create a lot of confusion, a lot of big plays. I've got Winston by a hair, but if you're asking me to pick who I would really want, I would take Mariota in a heartbeat.
Charles, knowing the skills that Mariota has, if he fails in the NFL, how much of that is on the team that drafted him not designing an offense that suits his skill set? I mean, I keep hearing all this stuff about he hasn't huddled that much, he hasn't dropped back from center that much. When I watch the NFL, I see a lot of guys in shotgun. I see Peyton Manning throwing wide receiver screens all the time. I see a lot of this stuff. So to me, I feel like that's a little overblown. And if he fails because of that, part of that has to go on the team for not designing something around the skills that he clearly has, right?
You raise a great point, and what it'll be, Ross, is us looking back and seeing that a team didn't take advantage of his gifts. If a team only did it one way, and we could sit there and, you and I are sitting in the rocking chairs going, how come they never put him in gun? How come they never do quarterback zone read? How come they never let him, do half rolls and boots and things of that nature? You know what I'm talking about. If we never saw that, yeah, that's on the team. Because I go back to the lockout. Remember the lockout year, and we got Cam Newton and Andy Dalton, and neither one of them had OTAs and mini camps and all? You got to give a lot of credit that year to Carolina and to Cincinnati. I think Rob Chudzinski was the OC there. Was it Hugh Jackson or Jay Gruden? They went back and said, okay, what do these guys do best? And got them comfortable early. And both of them had terrific rookie seasons. I mean, Cam went, 400 his first two games? Dalton took a team to the playoffs. So to your point, we're seeing more of the college game in the NFL now than we ever have before. And, Ross, you played in the league, and I'll bet you'll co-sign on this one. I won't put words in your mouth. But as you were in the league, how many times did you get a college coach coming to your team wanting to do some things that seem to be college things and getting shot down summarily by a staff?
Well,
we don't get that anymore.
Yeah,
nowadays they actually listen. Yeah, let's see if that adapts. And we see a lot more of those college concepts, just what you're talking about, more gun, bubble screens, things of that nature, trying to play to the strengths of the guys that are playing the game now.
We're talking with Charles Davis of the NFL Network. Check him out on Twitter at CFD22. He'll be all over NFL Network tonight and the next couple days as the draft unfolds. Charles, given what you just said, I'm assuming if you were the Titans at 2, you would draft Mariota, or would you look to make a trade?
I would be very open to the trade to see if I can strengthen my team overall. I think Ken Wisenhunt has a quarterback that he likes in Zach Mettenberger. I know Mettenberger was a 6th-round pick, but remember, he's coming off of an injury that helped knock it down his draft status. He plays the way that Ken has coached before. But I always tell people it's short shrift to these guys to say, well, it has to be like what he's coached before. You're trying to say that Ken Wisenhunt can't adapt or won't adapt? We thought Norv Turner could only coach a Troy Aikman, Phillip Rivers type quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater's nowhere near that. How'd he do his rookie year? And how did Norv do in coaching him? I think it went really well. These guys who are the best coaches make those moves. And I go back to that point you made earlier. It would be on the teams if these guys don't thrive, if you try and give them the things that they work on, that they do best. In this case, I'm saying Wisenhunt can coach Mariota, but if I'm Tennessee, I'm very open to listening to a blockbuster deal to give me more players and keep getting me better. But if I don't get that, I would take Mariota, and I would be off to the races because I think Wiz will adapt, and I'm a huge believer in Marcus Mariota.
Other than the quarterbacks, Charles, do you have a favorite player, a favorite guy in this draft in the first round?
Todd Gurley. Crazy about it. Can't help it. I know he's had the knee injury, but Ross, I think he's the best runner to enter the league since Adrian Peterson. I don't think he's as good as Adrian Peterson. But for the best to enter the league since Adrian, I think that's pretty strong.
But Charles, weren't people saying that, though, about Trent Richardson, that he was the best guy coming out since Peterson, and he stinks?
Yeah, but each guy's different, Ross, because we can say that about every guy who's been out that's been at every position. I mean, Mandarich came out and hit the skids, but we didn't quit drafting offensive tackles.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's just how it goes. Quarterbacks come out. This is the best quarterback we've seen since. He folds. We keep drafting quarterbacks. You keep going back to it and keep trying to get it done. I like Gurley. I think he's got a strong sense of self. I know the knee injury is there, but the medical rechecks have been very positive. We've had guys who've come out of that injuries before, and you know, you're rolling the dice with them. But you're rolling the dice with every player in the NFL. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's a collision game, and injuries are going to happen. I think this kid is the truth. I think he's dynamite. He's my favorite player in the draft.
How crazy is it that we haven't had a running back go in the first round the last couple of years, and we're going to have one tonight that's coming off a torn ACL? Where do you expect him to go, Charles?
I think that he is a top 5 talent who there will be noise about someone in the top 10. San Diego at 17 seems a nice landing place, but I'm not sure that San Diego can wait to 17 to get him. They may have to make a move if they're sold on him, and they may have to move up to go get him. So I think that somewhere safe between 10 and 15, a shocker, and would set off a few tremors for tonight, would be someone in the top 10. And truthfully, it's going to sound crazy, but I know you guys have heard it already. It starts at 6 with the Jets.
Wow. I would love – the draft's in Chicago. I would love if it was in New York to see how Jets fans would react to Gurley.
I would too.
At 6. That would be unbelievable. We're talking with Charles Davis. He does a really, really nice job calling college football games and as a draft analyst for NFL Network, whose coverage kicks off tonight. Charles, what about the two guys that have had the marijuana concerns, the two pass rushers, Randy Gregory from Nebraska, Shane Ray from Missouri? How good are they? If they didn't have those concerns, where do they get drafted? Because as we're watching tonight, if those guys start to fall and different teams are thinking, I don't know if we should draft them or not, I want us and the fans to know how good these guys are when one team potentially pulls the trigger on either one of those guys tonight.
Yeah, I think that both of them tonight, Ross, really belong to the Flying Walenda family. All right? And the Flying Walendas were tightrope walkers. And both of them are walking a heck of a tightrope in terms of the first round. Because of what you said, what has happened. Here's my prediction. Shane Ray and Randy Gregory were both top 10 talents. I think in most mock drafts, most personnel people you talk to, they would be surprised if they had no other concerns, if neither one of them was off the board by the time pick 10 was over. That's how good they both are. In my rankings, I had Gregory a little bit ahead of Ray, just by sheer athleticism, but Ray is probably a more polished overall pass rusher. Now, when I say the Walendas, here's what I think happens. Shane Ray, because of what happened, it was close in time, cause celebrate, the whole deal. But his background is a lot cleaner than Randy Gregory's. You go back and trace it and do your homework on it. So I think he's still in play. So I think there's actually not part of the Walendas, because the Walendas' hook was they operated without safety nets. There were no nets below the Walendas when they did tightrope walking. This is more Ringling Brothers. I think there's a safety net for Shane Ray, and I think it's between picks 20 and 32. That someone will take him and become a value pick for them. Randy Gregory, I believe, will slip through the first round and not be picked. I think there's a lot more in his background there, a lot more off-field stuff that people have had to delve into. He told our Kimberly Jones at NFL Network, I believe, that there were 2 documented failed drug tests. I think teams in the league believe there's a lot more there than what meets the eye. I think he ends up out of the first round, and that's a heck of a deal there because that's one of the top pass rushers, an elite player that won't be picked in the first round.
Charles, what about Lyle Collins? I watched and studied all the offensive linemen. I think that you could make the claim that the LSU offensive tackle, who some people might slide into guard, watching the tape, Charles, I think you can make a strong argument that he's the best offensive lineman available. I know some people have Share for Andrews Pete, but I think you could say that for Collins. What are you hearing about how teams are treating this? Because on the one hand, Charles, I don't know how you draft a guy in the first round or maybe draft him at all if there's any chance he's involved with the incident down in Louisiana. On the other hand, what if he has absolutely nothing to do with it?
Yeah, people are just scurrying, as you know, Ross, and there's just no time. People are trying their best to find out what's going on. You know how many phone calls have been made to Louisiana, to every contact down there, to try and get a line on this thing, to see if they can find out if they have an inside deal. Are they just talking to him because they actually knew her? Do they really believe that there's more there? They're all trying to get all this information. Absent any information that's solid, I think most teams take a pass. I don't think he goes in the first round now. I think his first-round dreams just went up because you're dealing with now a monster issue that's really fresh in our minds because, let's face it, Aaron Hernandez just concluded a trial. And when you're starting to talk about things that involve, the death of someone, guns, the whole deal, a lot of teams are like, hold up a second. And not to devalue him at all, because I think your points are well taken. This guy plays the game with a furious pace and a physicality that few people play with. I think he's one of the better ones out there. But you're not talking about the guy that puts the ball in the end zone. So I think people will more likely take a pass than they will take a chance without any better information. I just don't think there's enough time to get info before they could start the draft tonight in Chicago.
Charles, really appreciate the time and the insight. We'll check you out tonight and the next couple days on NFL Network. And if people want to follow you, they can hit you up on Twitter at CFD22. Thanks so much, man.
Hey, Ross, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Enjoy listening to you each and every day on the radio. You take care of yourself.
All right, there he is, Charles Davis.